Hello, I'm Rob.
And as am I, but a different one.
Yes, and welcome to Marmalade, the Geek Show's regular look back at the games that we've been playing over the last month.
Yeah, I mean, we do this because we don't often get the chance to talk about what we've been playing in News Trash and Impossible Mission. It's not really fit for that purpose, so
Yeah,
that's why we do it here.
And the thing is, when you go through any month in life and you play games the way we do, you'll go through several games. You won't be... I play a lot of games on my mobile, and now that I've got a Razer Kishi for Xbox that I basically connect to my mobile, I've tried Forza Horizon, various other things on there as well. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, but it's not worth, bringing up here. So yeah, this one's been a weird month for me. Sometimes you play a lot of games, sometimes you don't. This month I didn't, but you played a lot more than I did.
Got to preface this a little bit by saying I bought an Xbox Series X and I did it innocently thinking, I'll try something new this generation. It's not for me. I'll be perfectly honest. Games Pass is a fine thing, but sometimes people fit certain consoles and they don't fit others. It's not like it's games, so we like them all. That's not the way we're wired. So,
yeah,
I tried to be doing more Xbox stuff, but at the end of the day, there will be more Xbox stuff, just not coming from me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there'll be more PC stuff coming from you, but not Xbox.
I get what they call it, in the infrastructure. I'm in the infrastructure, but not,
I think
some terms what they describe things as.
See, we talked about this before, and right, I've used lots of different environments, lots of different platforms in my life. So I have no problem these days jumping from one platform to another. I'm perfectly comfortable in Nintendo's environment, in Sony's environment, in Xbox's environment, in the PC environment, or on a handheld, whatever. I pick up and play anything. But that's a product of how I grew up and the multiple environments that we engaged with as I was growing up. And that just wasn't consoles.
So let's word it another way, right? Let's word it another way. Rob's a bit of a slut, and I'm steady Eddie.
What? I am not. I am not a gaming. I am not a gaming bicycle.
Your words, Rob. Your words.
Damn.
But anyway, yeah.
Damn you.
Let's just jump into it. First, I tried a lot of things on the Game Pass, and a lot of it just didn't really stick for me. The first thing that did stick wasn't really specific to that. It was Star Wars Fallen Order. And I don't know, I'm very late to this, but to my defence, I never played it on PlayStation 4 because it's one of those games right near the tail end of the console where to play it would mean long loading times and the sort of grunt from hell that these machines make when you're trying to play something on them that's clearly too powerful. I remember on the PlayStation 3, I think it was Saints Row the Third, and when you upgrade the speed running, you don't use cars because, you can run faster. And when you upgraded the speed to as high as it could possibly be, you run so fast that it crashed the machine every time. And it's that sort of
When you're talking about that grunt, are you talking about the grunt that female tennis players make when they're going for a power shot?
Technically, yeah. But anyway,
sorry, I just have a brilliant mental image of you playing it on the PlayStation 4, and every time it gets to a certain point where it has to try a bit, it's going, yeah! making noises like Wimbledon.
Yeah, may as well. It basically is, though, isn't it? That's basically what it is doing. It's exerting a lot of effort, more than it probably should. But anyway, yeah, Star Wars Fallen Order. In it, you play Cal Kestis, who is, I think it's between the two trilogies. Hang on, no, I don't know where it falls, because at the end of it, spoiler alert, it's got Darth Vader. So I don't know where it would fall. I think maybe it's before Return of the Jedi.
Right. With Jedi Fallen Order, it's possibly around the same time as A New Hope.
I don't know whether it's as early as that, but
maybe
it's before Darth Vader dies. That's basically the only sort of barometer.
Yeah, but the reason why I say that is because from some of the things, I haven't played it yet, but from some of the discussions I've seen around it, I would put it possibly a little bit before New Hope, and filling in that void between the Revenge of the Sith or whatever it was, that prequel trilogy, and the actual Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, you play Cal Kestis. He's I'm going to say samurai there. He's a Jedi who's basically what there is. They're basically cosmic Jedi.
Cosmic samurai, yeah.
Yeah, but you basically are in hiding because there's been a cull of Jedi. A situation pushes you into basically being outed, and you go on the run with a woman and a troll who owns a ship. I don't know what it's alien species in Star Wars. You really just describe what they look like, and that'll do. It's a 4-armed troll. There you go. One of those ones you keep on the end of pencils, it's lost its hair. And off you go to get a sort of a MacGuffin to find a list of Force-sensitive kids. Takes you on a journey with all sorts of things across a variety of planets, like 4 or 5 planets. Now, I've got reservations with this because, one, it's by Respawn, and I really, really like Respawn. They did Titanfall 2, which is rightfully getting the sort of love it deserved for a very, very long time. But at the same time, what I felt when I was playing Fallen Order was that it's much better as a proof of concept than a finished article. In the same way that Assassin's Creed 1 was. It's a solid game, don't get me wrong, but it's not the finished article. The finished article was the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy. That was when they figured out what that game could be. This is a good Star Wars game. I like the combat. It uses the Force powers particularly well, even if it's not particularly inventive. The most inventive it gets is use sort of Force gubbins to basically have the sort of what they call them in games, sort of picking up audio tapes. You use Force sort of ideas, so you're forcing this message out of thin air or whatever. I don't know. It's sci-fi fantasy gubbins, isn't it?
I love the idea of just, instead of calling it Force Crush or Force this or Force that, they use the Force in different ways. So there might be a Force Gubbins, a Force Doohickey, a Force
forcing people to go slower as well. That's the other sort of Force power that he has. Besides pushing people, and when I push people, there's little R2-D2s, and I just push them. It's this is what I got this game for. This is what I'm playing this game for. Throwing R2-D2s about with Force powers.
Are you bullying the R2 units?
I'm sorry, Star Wars fans, but they're kind of annoying. How do people know what they're saying? It's getting into Star Wars stuff I want, sort of dig deeper, but yeah, it's sort of the gameplay loop, using the parry and attack in the same way that you would in Assassin's Creed, I think. Similar sort of thing. Earlier, not that it is now, I don't particularly like the current Assassin's Creed combat and fight system. It makes you feel powerful, but never too powerful, because it makes the parry almost vital. And I'm not ashamed to admit this, but I played it on story mode because I'm of an age now, and as a Europe, where I don't want to be constantly butting heads with a game. I just want to get on with it and enjoy it. So story mode is good for me. You can say get good all you want, but at the end of the day, I just play games for fun. I don't play games for the challenge. That's not who I am anymore. But yeah, essentially, it plays well. It's well written. BB, I can't remember the name of the robot is. The robot that's with you, I love him, the little scamp. But yeah, it's just a solid first effort. And I think if they ever make a Fallen Order 2, it could be excellent. But this, it's just not quite there. The scope isn't quite big enough. It's only 3 planets, and when you go to the using the Metroidvania thing, have you got a new power, so let's go to this planet again. And it keeps on doing it over and over and over again. You get a bit sick of the same 3 planets. I think if there was more places you could visit, more varied sort of places you could, environments you could go through, I think I'd be a bit more positive about it. But yeah, it's just a bit too limited in its concept, I think.
Number one, just picking apart certain points. Number one, if anyone said to me, get good, I'd hit them with a big stick until they were begging. So, number two, Jedi Fallen Order, I think, is a step in the right direction for the Star Wars franchise as a whole. Because the thing that...
I'll just sort of elaborate on that. It's a step in the right direction because the other games felt like they could have been anything. They've just got a Star Wars skin on.
Well... This
genuinely feels like a Star Wars game. Yeah. It feels like you're in the universe of Star Wars, and it's so nice to have that.
It's a step in the right direction for the Star Wars franchise. in terms of video games. I think that what Star Wars should have been from the very get-go. And yeah, Battlefront 1 and 2, when they first came out on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, the original Xbox, when they first came out on those, they were great. And one of the reasons they were great is because they had a story mode that was telling a story as well, right? Mm-hmm. That was part and parcel of what made those games great. When EA did the remakes of Battlefront 1 and 2, they basically tried to make them into, competitive shooter, looter thing, whatever it became, okay? And the graphics were great, but there was no soul to the game. And the thing is, when you go back, when you look at Star Wars as a franchise in terms of the movies, there's a reason why those middle three movies, episodes 4, 5, and 6, are held in such high esteem, and it's because they have a soul.
Yeah. There's clear love for Star Wars and Fallen Order.
Yeah. And, I think that that's what you need. You need people who are fans, proper fans of a particular franchise or a particular title or a particular thing, to be part of the process of making a new version of that or a new iteration of that or a new addition to that, because without that, it's not going to have a soul. See, for me, there was one game that I could not ignore, and when it appeared on Game Pass, my first thought was, I've got to play this. And that was Narita Boy!
Oh, I wanted to do that.
Now, it's a Team 17 game. It's published by Team 17, but it's developed by Studio Koba. And it's a platform game. It's basically Tron. Let's put it that way. It is the original Tron, kind of combined with a little bit with Tron 2, but it's a very 80s aesthetic it's going for. And
yeah, I mean, when you say 80s aesthetic, people usually mean the way that it's got synth and it's totally sort of superficial.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, whoa, I love the 80s, me.
No, this is...
And then just, trot out the worst of the 80s.
This is the 80s in the way that, say, Far Cry Blood Dragon is a very 80s aesthetic. Because Far Cry Blood Dragon is definitely an 80s aesthetic type game.
Oh, yeah, it's a terrible camp 80s movie.
Yeah, exactly. And this is 80s in that way, in the good way. So it has the synth, it has the neon lighting, it has, the CRT monitors all over the place and everything like that. It's very, very 80s in the way it approaches it. But there's a story behind it. There is a root story behind it, which is very similar to Tron. You are a boy who is the new Narita Boy. And Narita Boy is a bit like Tron in the movie Tron. Because a lot of people forget that Tron is actually a security program in the movie.
Yeah.
Right? And Narita Boy is kind of like that. He is the link between the real world and the computer world, the program world. And so he is kind of a security program himself. His role is to be the hero, the new Narita Boy. So this boy gets transported into a computer.
It's Narita Boy!
Yeah.
not Narita Boy, come on.
So anyway, a kid is chosen as the new Narita Boy. And the creator of the world has basically... There's parts of him that have fallen asleep, and what has happened is that... And this is all of the story. And you'd be amazed at how much of the story is crammed into just a basic platform game.
It's a bit dense.
Yeah, it is quite dense. You have rogue programs and devil programs who've appeared and are forcing the creator to forget that he's created this world. And because if he fully forgets that he's created this world, then they'll have no defense against the devil programs, and then it'll become hell in program world.
But one thing you got to sort of hang on that. It's not spoken in plain terms like Rob just explained there.
No.
It's kind of like this marriage between Shintoism and coding dialect.
And it's beautiful because of that.
If you can get on board. I didn't, and I was like, I don't know what's happened.
You don't have a coding background, which is why you don't understand the beauty of it, but it is marvellous. I loved the dialogue in this. And yeah, it's not spoken, it's all text-based, but the wording of it is wonderful. Right, when you grow up, or when you're a sci-fi junkie like me, right, you want to see it done really well. You want to see it done properly. And Narita Boy, in terms of its sci-fi chops, is done properly, right? They've researched it and done it properly. When it comes to the kind of soul-searching and waking up the memories and stuff like that, that was a little more esoteric, a little more metaphysical, and I understand why they've done that, because they want to create a link between the character of Narita Boy and the creator of the of that world, yada yada yada. But in terms of the actual, in terms of the aesthetic, it was, as I said, CRT monitors, platforms, neon lights all over the place. You know, some characters were huge, some characters were small. And there was one scene where you had this monk sitting in this chair, and he's got a big CRT monitor for a head. Reminded me a little bit of some of the characters that you see in, you know, Saga, the comic.
Lion Cat.
No, not Lion Cat. You know the prince with the...
I know, but yeah, that's what people remember from Saga, though. There's a hitman, I think it was, who had like a monitor for a head.
Yeah,
I kind of gave up on that series, but it was very striking with its character design.
All I will say is, if you only remember Lion Cat from Saga, then you haven't really read Saga properly, and you've forgotten totally the very first page of Saga.
Yeah, but let's not get in.
I'm not going to.
I've already barely got you after Star Wars thing. Let's not get on that one.
I'm not going to. But anyway, sci-fi chops, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's a wonderful looking game. It's a wonderful game in terms of its dialogue. Where it falls down is the actual platforming. Oh, it was frustrating.
It made me bounce off it, you know, because this is one bit where it says you gotta jump under, like from one side to the other, and in the middle there's like this thing which stops you from jumping high. So once you jump past this little bit, you bounce off the roof and then fall to your death. It really awkwardly told you had to sort of like, strafe jump.
Yeah, you basically have to use your dodge thing in the middle of the jump to basically slide across in the middle of your jump, so you land on it on the other platform. And
I died doing that more times than I'd actually like to admit, and it kind of made me just annoyed. And I thought, you know what, nah.
That suggests that I'm better at platform games than you are.
It also suggests that you have a patience for the sci-fi Shintoism, and I don't.
Yeah.
So it's just, it bounced off me stylistically and gameplay-wise, which is fine, you know, not everything's for everyone.
See, the thing is, I put solid hours into Narita Boy, and I enjoyed it. I liked the aesthetic of it, but I got stuck at certain points, and I ended up going backwards and forwards, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I mean, there are bits of it where it simply does not tell you where the last bit of this puzzle is or where the last bit of this code is, and you literally have to go through all of the bits that you've gone through again, fighting all the bad guys again, just to try and figure out what the hell you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I played it for about half an hour, so I'm not really in a position to talk about it in any great depth, but I did notice that about it, where it doesn't really give you a sense of where you need to go next.
Yeah. And you have,
which I understand with stuff like Hollow Knight, it kind of encourages exploration, but this isn't really positioned like that.
No, it's not. It's not about exploration. You have specific areas, and everything that you need for to solve a particular puzzle is in that area. It just doesn't tell you where, and you have to try and figure it out. And sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's very obvious. And when it's very subtle, it can be a bit too subtle, and frustratingly so.
Which is kind of in key with that era of gaming, though, wasn't it? It didn't exactly hold your hand in the 90s of video games.
Yeah, but it wasn't as subtle as that either when it came to solving puzzles. Some of them were, a lot of the puzzles, unless you were playing something like Myst or Riven or something like that, or you're playing...
Oh, that bloody goat and broken sword.
Yeah, or something like that. Unless you were playing a game like that, a point-and-click adventure, a first-person, adventure, something like that, then it wouldn't make you suffer over these puzzles.
Yeah, that's the word you'd use as well, suffer.
Sometimes it felt like that. Sometimes I just felt, I like this game a lot, but why are you making me run around like this?
So if you and me, you're getting to the point where you're getting so annoyed that you're taking your jumper off and you're rolling your sleeves up, and you basically, the more annoyed you are, the less clothes you have on. That's how games hit me. I'm a weird person, Anna.
Yeah. Remind me not to play games at your house.
That's okay.
I am not challenging you to FIFA again, because if I win...
Yeah.
And Narita Boy has a lot to recommend it. Just be aware that it is going to be frustrating at times.
And it's not for everybody. The style is kind of... if it's for you, it's amazing. Yeah. If it's not, it's just kind of...
I like the style of it.
Oh, no, so I'm saying it can hit people very differently.
Oh, God, yeah. It is literally getting slapped around the face with a wet fish synthesizer.
Yeah, and then moving on from that, because I no idea how to, is another game, Buildings Have Feelings 2, which is an amazing title for a game.
Yeah.
This is on all the platforms. It's an indie game, very small scale, but you know how you get city building simulators, Sims,
Cities, Skylines, and Sims,
other things like that.
SimCity and stuff, yeah.
I think there's one, Roller Coaster Tycoon is that sort of thing as well, where you got to manage a city and things like that. Well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about SimCity, Cities, City Skylines. Roller Coaster Tycoon is a tycoon game where you manage a roller coaster.
Well, no, there's like Tycoon and City Builders. There's an element of crossover.
Yeah, there is.
Games. This is nothing like that. This, is a game in which all buildings are sentient and you have got to manage relationships, build new buildings, make sure the buildings and the other buildings that they want relationships with and friendships with, and you're sort of building up these interactions between buildings. So say for example there's a warehouse that's been a warehouse for years, but he's kind of got bored of being a warehouse, so you're going to change him into a fruit and veg shop. But being a fruit and veg shop, he needs to be near some houses with people, and the people need to have sort of happy families in them. So, and if he doesn't have happy families in them, you get sad, and you got to make them happy, and you got to upgrade them when they're happy. I sound like I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Do you know what this sounds like? This sounds like you basically decided to become a dating and relationship manager for just derelict buildings.
Yeah, it does sound kind of weird when you describe it, doesn't it? But you go from sort of the early 20th century to pretty contemporary-ish.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's just, I adore the audacity of it. Because essentially it's weird, gorgeous art style where it's like pop-up animation, cut-out animation, sort of varying levels of, I don't know what to call it, sort of like 3D, but it's like varying levels of 2D, one behind the other. That's like,
I think, was it Parallax, was it?
Well, whatever it is, it's that. I mean, I think the Rayman games did it particularly well and stuff like this, where it's like multiple levels of 2D making 3D.
Yeah, Parallax, I think that's called.
Which I really, really like, and it has that pop-out, cut-out animation, which is just genuinely, it's charming as hell. If you don't get charmed to, like, seriously by this, it just doesn't make you smile at the sheer uniqueness of what it's presenting to you, I think maybe you need to be taken out back with Old Yeller, because, you know, it's just such a unique, idiosyncratic thing, which in the years of indie games basically just being a wild west for ideas and concepts, even within that sort of world, there's still been nothing like this, to be perfectly honest. I think where it falls down a little bit is in the obtuseness of some of the managing of relationships. It gets a little bit too resource intensive because certain things take certain amount of bricks, and when you don't do it right, it doesn't tell you how to fix it or do it properly. So when you've done it wrong, you basically run out of bricks to fix it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you basically got a situation that you can't fix because you don't have the resources to fix it, and you don't know where to go, and you've kind of, to pardon the phrase, but you kind of brick-walled yourself.
That was awful.
It's the only way I can explain it really. But it's not a long game, so you can kind of dip in, dip out when you completely balls it up. But yeah, it's just one of those games. It screams to me why indie games forever have a place and forever have a value, because there's an imagination and original ideas here which you just won't get anywhere else.
Yeah. And
the art style is gorgeous. Humble gorgeous, not like bleeding edge. It's all got ray tracing and 60k, not 4K, and 120 frames a second and blah blah blah. It's just the style which you'll remember for years, and I think that's more important for me.
Cool.
Buildings have feelings too.
It's interesting you mentioned the art style and the fact that it's an indie game, because that is a wonderful segue for me.
Unintentionally, but yeah.
See, also having a wonderful art style and also being an indie game is the other game that kind of appeared on Game Pass at the same time, and it's another game that I've wanted to play for a long time and finally got around to playing, which is Feral Cat Den's Genesis Noir. It was published by Fellow Traveller, but Feral Cat Den have done something, well, I'll say that it's a bit hit and miss, but it's more hit than miss.
Relating it back to Narita Boy, I think this is another one where if the art style doesn't hit you, it's a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah, but if you are intrigued by the art style, be prepared for virtually. In fact, I don't think there's any dialogue in the game, and I cannot remember any text in the game. There is a lot of music, a lot of jazz, which is great. There's a lot of animation. There's a lot of inferring things. There are some puzzles that are really hard and some that are nothing more than move your mouse over bubbles. You can use the mouse, you can use a controller, you can use the keyboard. If you are using a controller to play this game, then you are a Philistine. You only need...
Please don't be one of those people.
No, it's not that. This is the type of game where you basically want to use the mouse, right? Don't use anything else. It doesn't need anything else. It needs just one mouse. You don't even need the keyboard. Right, you don't need the only button that you need is your left mouse button.
So what exactly is this game? Because the trailers don't do a good job of communicating.
Okay, now you are a detective, right? And from what I have figured out so far in playing this game, I know the character that you play is called Noir, and he is the representative of time, right? He lives in a clock, everything like that. He is trying to stop Golden Boy, who represents energy, from killing Miss Mass, who is the mass of the universe. Golden Boy killing Miss Mass is representative of the Big Bang.
Yeah, between this and Buildings Have Feelings too, I can confidently say this one thing. Don't do drugs, kids.
Now, this is the thing. Noir, he's a watchmaker, and he actually used to date Miss Mass, who is a nightclub singer. He's basically down in his luck, down and out, selling watches for a bit of cash. And one day, while he's out selling watches, he's chasing some guy who's stolen a watch off him. And as he goes through the alleyway, he sees all these clothes being thrown out, and he hears Miss Mass calling for help. He basically goes to the apartment, kicks in the door, only to find Golden Boy in the middle of shooting Miss Mass through the heart, right? And he now has to figure out a way to stop that, which, yeah, it's very, very metaphysical, because at the beginning, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like a typical 1920s noir lovers quarrel, and you have to find a way to save the dame, using time travel and the laws of the universe, and then it all becomes weird.
This is art house sci-fi, isn't it?
I hesitate to even call Genesis Noir a game, right? It's one of those things that is more an experience, and when it comes to gaming, there are especially this form of gaming, there are so few things that can count as an experience rather than a game.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
And for that, I really applaud Feral Cat Den for focusing on... they spent 6 years making this game, and they made something that I think really stands out amongst the crowd as being original, as being innovative, as being imaginative, in a way that I didn't think I'd see in video games. I don't think Genesis Noir could exist in any other medium except for games.
Okay. It's a few things like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if it wasn't a game, it would only be a concept that would be put down on paper and put it away in a file, and they might take it apart and use bits of it, but we'd never see the light of day again, not as a complete thing.
It's a hard sell then, even more so than I thought.
It's one of those things where unless you are looking for Genesis Noir specifically, like I was, you're probably not going to be attracted to the game.
We put it in the same basket as Kentucky Route Zero, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, yes, that's a very good basket.
Because that is very oblique and obscure and abstract, and it's barely a game. There's no spoken dialogue, it's all text and light puzzles, and it's telling a story.
Yes, and I think Kentucky Route Zero, yes, it does deserve to be in the same category as Genesis Noir. I don't know what that category is. I think that if there are more games like this coming out, more curated experiences, maybe that's the subgenre we need to define for them. Call them curated experiences rather than games.
Jazz gaming.
Jazz gaming, yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Well, no, because jazz gaming. Well, was music a big part of Kentucky Route Zero?
Sorta, yeah.
So maybe jazz gaming is.
I've only done the first episode, and there's 5.
Maybe jazz gaming is the right descriptor for it, because jazz plays a big part in Genesis Noir. I love the music in Genesis Noir, by the way. It's so interesting, and it fits the jazz that is in the game. The music fits the tone of the game, the tone of the experience. Whether it's for you or not is a different matter.
Yeah. Lastly, is Sunset Overdrive, the game from Insomniac when they started, seeing other people besides Sony.
I have to ask you, because I haven't actually played Sunset Overdrive, and so I really want to ask you this. When it came out, there were quite a few people who were saying that Sunset Overdrive is kind of the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio.
There's a degree of it in there, yeah.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Now I know I can play it.
In it, you play a character called Player, who you create. It's very fourth wall breaking. It has the lead character calling himself Player. He doesn't have a name. He just knows what he's called because it's over his head in multiplayer, and he just can't quite see it. You talk with narrators. You talk with tutorial voiceover guy. All these sorts of things. But what it is, you play this character, this user-created character, and mine's like a huge, heavy-set Asian guy with a Mohican.
I just have one question, sir. Wouldn't the tutorial voiceover guy be called the tutor?
In some cases, he might, yeah. There's this company called Fizco, and they make a drink called Overlord, and Overlord turns people into monsters of varying degrees. They're just effectively called the OD. It's not a zombie game, they're nothing like zombies, because it's got varying degrees of them. Do all sorts of things. There's also robots you fight and scabs, people who aren't affiliated with the player character. And it's effectively an open world game in the sense of Infamous or the third Saints Row. As in, it's a superpower game with ridiculous powers, and it's very aware of how silly it is. It's got punk music in it, which I loved. It's just the sort of the energy of a punk bass line gives this such a sense of character and place and identity. I really, really liked it. I genuinely really like the game, the way the combat works, as in if you run around on the ground you will die in about 20 seconds straight.
Yeah.
So you've got to be incredibly mobile, which is probably where the Jet Set Radio comparisons come, because it's about sort of grinding and wall running and doing loop-de-loops.
Yeah, because that was the thing with Jet Set Radio. If you were running on the ground, you would get caught by the cops very quickly.
Yeah, it's exactly the same then. What I think, though, is I believe Insomniac learnt an awful lot of this when they made the Spider-Man games. Because Spider-Man is, if anybody's not played it, which I don't know anybody at this point who won't have, one of the big takeaways from that game is it's incredibly fun to move around the world, and it never gets boring. It just feels fresh and invigorating every minute. It's because of that it's the only game I've platinumed, the proper game anyway. In Sunset Overdrive, it's fun to move around in the sort of the area where you're doing the combat, but as in moving around the open world, it's a little bit repetitive and annoying.
Yeah.
It gives you the powers to move around. It gives you sort of the ability to jump and dash forward, bounce off water, do loop-de-loops, wall run, all sorts of things. But the game world is kind of basic.
Yeah.
Its side missions are better than they have any right to be, even though it's go there, collect this, or go there, shoot that. It does put a little bit more effort into the actual story of them than similar games of this type. But I think this is it's a better learning experience, and it'd be a better 10-hour game than what it actually is. It's like an open world, longer, drawn out game, and I don't think the style of gameplay really lends itself to that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I liked so much about Jet Set Radio was, number one, it had a very pick up and play nature. You didn't have to keep playing the game.
It'll do the world a good for this game to be like that.
Yeah, you didn't have to play the game repeatedly. You could basically finish one section, that was it, save the game, go away, and then come back and play it.
I mean, you can do that anyway thanks to Quick Resume, because let's be honest, Quick Resume is amazing.
Yeah, but I bet you.
Otherwise, yeah.
I bet you had more fun playing the game because of Quick Resume, because you could just drop in, drop out. Yeah.
Yeah, but the game wasn't designed like that.
Yeah, the game wasn't designed like that. If the game had been designed with that in mind, maybe it wouldn't be an open world per se. It'd be kind of a half open world where you had.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's open world is its greatest weakness.
Yeah. By half open world, do you remember Dragon Age? And
yeah, it's like contained little areas. The same with Last of Us Part 2. It's not an open world, it's just big open little areas.
Yeah.
And you move from one to the other. This is just, it's all open. You can sort of go everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
The start. It doesn't really suit it.
Well,
even though you think it would, because the whole point of the game is it's quite fun to move around.
Yeah.
But it gets a bit annoying because the world is just
Yeah.
It's just as a game world.
Yeah. And yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, it looks like Insomniac looked at Jet Set Radio and went, there's something that we can build on there.
Totally.
And they set out to do something with Sunset Overdrive, which eventually became the Spider-Man game.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the license back to Sunset Overdrive, Insomniac, so what they're going to do with that, whether it's just protecting it so other people can't use it, or whether they're actually planning on doing something with it, I don't know. But I think it's exactly the same as Fallen Order. It was a fantastic proof of concept.
Yeah.
If they managed to do it again, I think they could do something really special.
Yeah.
But that first effort is just sort of kinky-inning. And there's a lot of kinks. It's fun to play it. I recommend it entirely if you've not played it already. But it's just a bit too kinky and not the right way.
I know what you mean. But yeah, I agree. I think that it's weird because Fallen Order and Sunset Overdrive are like so many other games where they've been great as the proof of concept, as you say. But the sad thing is they've never been built on, and I hope that's not the case with these two.
You could probably throw like Days Gone in that as well. That's a good concept.
Days Gone
which would
again,
have been great in a sequel.
Days Gone again there's so much untapped potential in that game. So much untapped potential in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, in terms of world.
Yeah, it has that sort of cheeky over-the-topness.
Yeah.
It's not like exploitation violence, it's just sort of splat-stick violence, and I don't think there's enough of that, really.
But there's also that twist as well, with that hazmat character, which suggests all sorts of things as well, and you could build all sorts of things based on that. That's it for this month. Let us know what you've been playing over the last month in the comments below. Have you been playing anything interesting, intriguing? Give us some recommendations for things to play in the months to come.
Especially on Game Pass.
Yeah.
We are open to recommendations from that.
Yes, Game Pass. We're open to recommendations on every platform, but Game Pass in particular, we're exploring Game Pass at the moment. So, let us know if there's anything you recommend off there. And yeah, if you like what we've done here, then check out some of the other stuff on our channel. And if you want to show your support, we do have a Patreon. The links are in the description below. Until the next Marmalade, then, thanks for watching.